Hello, fellow chatterers and book appreciators, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious or you're lost. I'm Chatty, and welcome to my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter. And I will be doing a bi-weekly wrap-up. So I'm going to talk through all the books I've read so far in May and what I've thought about them and what my plans are for reading for the rest of the month. Sorry, my eldest is in the middle of making a castle and needed help with supporting his gatehouse. So the first book that I read was The House with Chicken Legs, and this was finishing off. It was my final book to read for Aurelium. I had read some of it in April and I finished it off in May. This is a middle grade fantasy, and it is inspired by the legend of Baba Yaga. So this is Marinka, and she lives with her grandma Baba Yaga in the house with chicken legs, which will walk around the world, settle down somewhere, and she needs to build the skull wall to keep out humans and welcome in the souls of the dead. And she is being trained to become a Yaga later on, like her grandma. But Marinka really wants to live and be involved with the living. She really wants to be, settled somewhere long enough to be able to make a friend. So obviously these two things clash. So this story is about Marinka trying to find what she wants to be able to do in the world, in her life. That's kind of the basis of the story, and then it kind of goes in a slightly sort of different direction as you start reading it. So she makes some choices. She gets upset about things, and her choices have consequence. She makes mistakes, but they are mistakes that feel very right for her character, and there's some bittersweet moments, there's some heartfelt moments, there's some humorous moments, there's some really lovely moments. You are introduced to lots of different side characters as the book goes on, and they are really well written. It's really strongly done. I love the house with chicken legs. The actual house itself is also a character as well. And Marinka has her relationship with the house is also quite entertaining. And I just love how the story evolves. So throughout Marinka's choices, we learn more about what it is that Yagas need to do, why this is important, what happens if they don't do it, and more about kind of like the Yaga lifestyle and more about that magic. And all of those things all kind of pull together, and the story is just so well written. So I had an amazing time reading this book. I loved it so much, and when I finished reading, I hugged it. I just had a little moment where I just sat and hugged the book because it was so beautifully done. Just the way the story, the way it explored the character choices and kind of concluded everything, and it kind of went in ways that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but I really enjoyed every part of this book. I thought it was wonderful. So if you enjoy middle grade, if you enjoy the legend of Baba Yaga, then I highly recommend this book. I don't know if I said, but it is by Sophie Anderson, and there are some illustrations, or not many illustrations. There's a few. Oh, at the house there. So there are a few illustrations kind of throughout the book. There are any more. It's a nice little one there with stars. So that's also really lovely as well. So yes, that's lovely, and I really like the cover of this one. I think it's so cool. So also, if you really love houses that have personalities, if you like Casita from Enchanted, I think you're going to love The House with Chicken Legs. I can't get it on my shelf now. And then the second one that I read is The Sad Ghost Club, which is a YA graphic novel, and it is by Lisa Meddings. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name, but it's there. And I'm just going to show you the back. So here it says, "This is not a sad story, though it begins with a struggle and anxious swirling thoughts, but sometimes even the worst of days can surprise you." And then it says, "Join the Sad Ghost Club." So I really wasn't sure what to expect about this one. I knew it dealt with mental health, and I knew that other people had really enjoyed reading it. So it's a very, don't know what the word is. Sweet feels a little bit trite. That's not quite the right adjective. But it's a very, it's quite heartwarming. It explores, obviously, mental health. So the main character suffers from mental health, and everyone else in here is portrayed as human, and our protagonist is portrayed as a human wearing a bedsheet, like a ghost. So obviously it explores mental health. It explores the protagonist's kind of struggle and dilemma of like everyday decisions and what they're going through, and then eventually meeting someone else who, although very different to them and has different thoughts and things about them, can empathize with the struggles they're going through. So it's really, although dealing with very kind of like heavy topics, it's a very kind of like simple and straightforward narrative. It's really quick to read. I do enjoy the illustrations. There's a cat, if you like a cat, and a frog in here. So yeah, it was a very quick read. It didn't delve too much into mental health. It was just kind of explored, this is someone's experience of it. This is how it feels like for them. So I think a lot of people will find this really, really relatable. It's a very quick and easy read. So I'm a bit annoyed with myself because I saw it in the library and I was like, oh, that's one that I've been wanting to read, so I'm just going to pick it up. And then I realised that I've got all these readathons coming up and this would fit into a few of the categories, and we always love a graphic novel in a readathon because that's a nice easy one to tick off and feel like you're getting somewhere amidst all the other big tomes you put in. But I've read it now and I enjoyed it, and I will be looking out for the second one. So yeah, I think it's one that I'm glad to read and I want to read, but I don't think it's going to be one where I'm necessarily going to want to reread it. I think I can take everything just from one go. And although I enjoyed it, I don't think I love it enough to kind of go through it again. But, you know, if you enjoy a graphic novel, if you enjoy the topic of mental health, then I think you'll enjoy this. It's very quick and easy to read. And then this is the third and final book that I have finished. So it's been 2 weeks, and oh no, that's not technically true. So I didn't explain this at the beginning, but today is Monday the 16th. So we are pretty much halfway, if not a bit more, into May. And I'm not quite as far on as I wanted to be at this point, but hey, life. So on my final book that I've completed, you know, it is over 500, it's just over 500 pages. So, you know, it is elephant size. So that's pretty impressive. But I was hoping that it didn't take me 2 weeks to read it when I've got things like this sitting here. But no, I have actually read 4 books, so I'll come on to that one in a moment. This is the third book that I have read. It is V.E. Schwab's A Gathering of Shadows. It is the second book in the Shades of Magic series. And I have been buddy reading this with Jessie the Sleepy Koala and Megan, who on Discord goes by Sylvan Princess. And I'm so pleased to be buddy reading it with them. We've all got kind of very similar thoughts on it. So it was a lot of fun sharing those thoughts and hearing how they were getting on with it. And yeah, I think we kind of feel the same way about this series. So the first book, we very much felt we liked the premise, but we just felt that it could have been, it just fell a little bit short. We felt it could have been a bit more. We could have had a little bit more exploration of where things went. We didn't quite buy into the romance that was being indicated. But in this one, there is a lot more work done on the characters. So things that what I was being annoyed by in the first book are explored a bit more in here. So we're still following Kel and Lila, and we're able to explore her kind of more emotional side of things. She does have emotional reactions, she just suppresses them, so that was explored a bit more, which I appreciated. We explore more of the consequences of what happened to Kel and what happened in the first book, and the consequences of that, and how he is in this one, his relationship with his family, his place in Red London. All of that is explored. We got a lot more of Rye and Kel in this one, which I really appreciated. I wanted more of the brothers. I wanted more of their interaction. So Rye is given a much stronger role in this one, rather than being sort of like a secondary character. We are introduced to a new character as well, who was a lot of fun. There's an air of mystery around them. Do we like this character? Do we not like this character? Which was interesting. Most of the book though is set in Red London, whereas the first one was a mixture of 3 of the Londons. So in the Shades of Magic, there's like 4 different worlds. So you have Black London, that was the most magical, that has been destroyed by magic. So that is like a dead world now. Then you have White London, which is getting quite ill. It's just got a lot of magic in it. Everyone is power hungry for magic in that world, and it is on the road to kind of like self-destruction, and it tends to be a bit scary. Then you have Red London, which wasn't as magical as the others, but since they shut off all the portals between the worlds, Red London has thrived. So Red London is like a more of the magical utopia place, although it has its own sufferings and things in it. And then you have Grey London, which is our world, but in Regency England. So the reigns of sort of like George III with the Prince Regent. And that has there's no magic in there. So the first book, you had Kel and another magician. So magicians called Arturi. I can't remember. Yes. Antari, I think they're called, are magicians, and they can travel between the worlds. They can also transport themselves within the same world. So this book, it was mainly set in Red London. There's trials, there's a tournament if you're enjoying that, there's characters in disguise, there's some crazy stupid decisions from characters that you feel are probably going to end badly, but it's a fun ride. We see a lot more about the elemental powers. So in the Red London and in White London, different people can use elemental magic. It tends to be in White London and Red London, if you don't have elemental magic, if you are not magical, then you probably end up with a very poor lifestyle, because people deem magic to be a status. So we get to see a lot more of the elemental magic. Most people have 1 element, some people have 2, and then very rare people have 3. Obviously, as an Atari, they have access to all of the magic. So we see exploration of powers in this book. But in terms of like this book with the overall plot, it's kind of like coming in but doesn't kind of hit the forefront, but there's not enough of it to kind of keep my interest. What I loved about this book was the concept of the portals between the different London, and I wanted that tied more into the story. I really wanted more of White London and Grey London, and I wanted more of them being involved in this. Like, there's a potential threat, or that some things could get problematic is kind of hinted at, but it doesn't fully go into it. And I would have liked it to, and I think you could have it crossing over and giving a certain more tension to the tournament. So this very much felt like an exploration and like a training session of some of the characters in this book. It was fun. I was very much here for the ride, but I just feel it could have been so much more. I felt we needed more London exploration. But I did then become invested in the love story that was broached in the first one. It felt more natural in this one and actually earned. There was a second love story, which I did find myself very easily able to root for. And that is all I'm going to say, because I don't want to spoil this for anyone. So when I started reading it, I thought I was going to enjoy it more than the first one. But as I kind of went through it, I still enjoyed it in terms of the character development, but I wanted more world building and plot and more from the other Londons. So I'm hoping that the third book delivers on all of it. I'm crossing my fingers and holding out hope. But I did have a fun time. Like I said, I was very much here for the ride. I did enjoy the characters. So yeah, it was good. So I did read a book. I have read one more book, so I've read a total of 4 books, and that was the book that I took with me on my spa weekend. But I haven't yet posted the video about which one I chose for my tea and taste, and that I have made a video about finishing the book on the spa weekend. So you will hear about that one in another video. So there's just one more book. So I'm currently in the middle of these 2. So in terms of me trying to pass my TBR for May, I've completed 1, which was The Gathering of Shadows. I've nearly finished Northanger Abbey, which is good. I've just got a little bit left to read. So I'm hopeful that I can finish this tonight, because today is the first day of Shardathon, so I need to start reading something fresh so that they will count for a Shardathon readathon. And I definitely want to get this finished this week, because otherwise I've got another massive book and it's just, I'm not going to complete my May TBR, and I have punishments and rewards hanging on this, so I need to complete it. But yes, I'm enjoying Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. Is a classic. It is a reread for me, and I haven't read it for ages because I haven't owned it. I've only just recently hauled it and owned it. So it's been a long time. So I had forgotten how much of a satire this book was. I knew it was like making fun sort of like of the Gothic literature that was highly popular at the time. But I didn't realise how much of a satire it is, and it's affectionate poking fun. It's not like these novels are ridiculous. Like I really like the way that Jane Austen does this. Like there's little things like our heroine is so unaware that she is a heroine. If she were a true heroine, she would have been graced by the early death of her parents, but they are both fully there and functioning. So it's very kind of like, it's very humorous. I love all of that stuff. It's very humorous about the courtship of men and women. It's very humorous about certain characters. One of the characters in here who makes friends with our protagonist, Catherine, Isabella. I find the way Jane Austen writes about her so funny. So she passes herself off as one thing and says she is this, and then her behaviour and actions show her to be completely different to what she says about herself. And all the while you can very much hear Jane Austen's voice as the narrator pointing this out, that it goes completely over Catherine's head. She is such an amazing ingenue. I never know if I say that right, but I like the word. She's so... It takes everything at face value. I suppose a bit gullible, very naive, very innocent, but very open and heartfelt. And I think you can't help, even though like she is not worldly at all, you can't help but appreciate her and be fond of her as a character. And as a reader, I think you're invited into the joke that's just going over poor Catherine's head as Catherine kind of gets herself into a little bit of a pickle, because lots of the people in this society do not say what they mean, and there's a lot of inference, whereas to Catherine, she takes everything at face value. So with Isabella, she gives the impression to Catherine that she is trying to avoid these 2 young men, and then can't be doing with them, doesn't want to see them at all, and let us quickly go and let's just quickly go off and we will not have to put up with their behaviour. And Catherine's there like, but they went in that direction. If we go that way, we're bound to bump into them. I'm like, well, I'm not going to change my behaviour for them. I will not give them the satisfaction. And Isabella was so restrained, she only looked back 3 times. Just things like that I really enjoy. So I am having a great time rereading this. It's such a comfort read and I feel pretty confident that I can get it finished tonight. And I really love this copy. It's so pretty and it's just so small. Less confident with getting Words of Radiance read. So I think one of the biggest problems that I'm having with rereading this series is purely the format of this book because it's so pretty. I have to read it like here in this chair or just downstairs sitting on the sofa, and I have to be able to put it somewhere safe so that it doesn't get damaged. I can't like eat my breakfast and read this book. It's not, I can't do that. So my time available to read it is not as much. It's a rubbish sentence I've just tried to say. So I need to kind of like allow myself to have more like solid reading time where I can sit and read Words of Radiance sort of in one go and just like block in sitting and reading time. Whereas all the other ones, I tend to kind of squidge it in as I'm doing bits and pieces, and like I have the book and it tends to follow me around the house. For example, like on the spa weekend, my friends would laugh at me because I was literally in the car. My friend stopped off at a garage, got my book out, read about 3 or 4 pages, put it away. And they were like, just read 4 pages of your book. I was like, oh yeah, I take it when I can. And I can't do that with this one. Like I was so tempted to be able to take this with me, but it would just have been a ridiculous thing to have done. But I'm loving it. I'm having such a great time being back in this world again, being back with these characters. So Words of Radiance is the second book by Brandon Sanderson in the Stormlight Archive, which is an epic adult fantasy. And I have not got very far at all. I've not even got to the end of where the first book would be when it's split. So I've got quite a lot of reading of this to do still, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving being back with Shalon and Kaladin and following their stories and seeing where they're progressing after the events of the first book. Yeah, and I think that's really all I can say. When I have read this, I'm hoping to do another review like I did of Way of Kings because it's so much fun to like explore this more. But we will see. Timing wise, it might not happen. It might just have to be something I do later. But I am really enjoying this and I need to get this read. So once I finish these 2 that I am reading, then that would be half of my books for May done, which is a good place to be in for halfway through May. But we'll see. I'm also hoping to start picking up, I feel like once I've read this one, then I will be at liberty to feel in a good place with my May TBR and then starting to pick up the books that I want to read for the Asian Readathon. The other books that I have on my May TBR, 2 of them are short, 1 of them is massive. The massive one I'm not starting till the 23rd of May because that's when a few other people that I'm doing a read along with are able to read it and I want to be able to talk to them about it. So that's quite nice. So I know I don't need to start that one till then. The other 2 I'm hoping will fit into the readathon that I'm doing at the weekend. So I'm hoping that will all work out well. But we will see. Thank you so much for watching. If you got to the end of this video, then please leave a little stack of books or like a thumbs up to wish me luck for getting through my May TBR and seeing if I can avoid this punishment. Yeah, let me know your thoughts and feelings on any of the books I've spoken about, and I will do another sort of recap of the ones I read throughout the rest of the month, a little wrap up for some of the readathons, and then I will also be doing another stats video of all the books that I've read in May. And I've still got a couple of readathon videos coming up for the other 2 readathons for my I Can't Resist a Readathon series, so do keep a lookout for those as well. And if you haven't subscribed and you like the vibe, then please do click that button and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.